We're live.
Okay, perfect.
We're live and we're dealing with our tech issues all at the same time.
It's real.
It is real. The struggle
okay.
is real.
It's going live to my YouTube right now.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm waiting for the thing to start.
And
Welcome. Good morning. Happy Saturday. I have emails going off. We've got all this stuff happening. We're excited to be here. We're spilling tea. We're going to cover pop culture, women's sports psychology, and of course, I'm sure some life updates from Tamara and I. So, Yay. Thank you for joining us.
Yay. Here we are. First of all, I can't believe that the year is basically half over.
I heard that in the news. They're like, we're 6 months from Christmas or something. And I'm like, what? How is that even possible? I'm not even trying to hear that. That's like when you go to the store and there's like Halloween decorations out or Christmas decorations out and it's not even Halloween. Like,
yeah, no, I'm not about that yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Yeah, I'm not either. No.
Yeah. By the way, do you like my new background?
I do actually. I had a sheet because I was covering a picture. I don't know why it's so like it's showing up as such a thing, but yes, yours looks awesome. What is that?
So they're like these super cool tiles that you put on your wall.
Oh,
and
cool.
So Jeff and I put these together because I felt like just the white plain background didn't look good and it just looked so generic. I want something cooler. So we put this together so that our little side kind of studio at the ranch now has this whole like cool background to it.
That's awesome. It looks influencer-tastic.
Oh, look at me. All right, so let's get into life updates. But before we do that, can we cover Baby Reindeer? Because we keep saying, oh my God, and then not being a chance to talk about it. But we keep saying, oh my God, have you seen Baby Reindeer? Yeah. So what do you think? I've watched it twice, by the way, because I felt like I needed to figure out what I was looking at.
I'm curious. Okay, I'm curious to hear how the second time was. I mean, to me, my major takeaway, I'll streamline my whole deep thought was, it was such a good example of like, you never really know what's going on and you really can't judge a book by its cover. Especially right now with all these pop culture things, like all these big leaders that have been revered coming out with, you know, as abusers and whatnot. Everything looks a certain way and it's another. And like the moral of the story is you really just have to get into the details before you form opinions on things. Because I didn't really know how to feel. How did you feel?
Icky.
Yeah. I can't believe
I felt. I don't know how else to describe it. I guess I guess I watched the whole thing with this look.
Yeah.
You know, that look of like what is happening? I think to me it was a combination of like exactly what you said. You never know what's happening underneath the surface. Yeah. And I've also had some real life experiences that have really reinforced that recently. So I think it all kind of, for me, the show was like, oh yeah, you don't know what's going on behind in someone's world or why they're doing what they're doing or why they make the decisions they make. So don't judge because there could be some like deep-seated baggage or something else going on. I think the other thing was it was a journey of self-worth, and his decisions in the beginning were really based on his unbelievable lack of self-worth. Yeah. And as he started to kind of work through that, and some of that was accidental, but work through it, his decisions changed. But I will tell you, the second time around, I was really blown away by the woman that played Martha and the nuances in her ability to go from batshit crazy to vulnerable. Yeah, in her face and in her demeanor. And I thought that was beautifully portrayed, because I also think, to your point, okay, this Martha, and I saw the interview with the real Martha on, what's his name? Morgan Pierce, whatever that guy's name is. Okay. And she hits differently. Say that. But not than the character. Like, she seems like the character. So, but again, to what your point was, being able to see the vulnerability in the Martha character made me also realize this woman has stuff going on underneath the surface that I don't understand. Not justifying what she did, but yeah. So I guess to me, to what you said, it was really a lot about the judgment, but also about self-worth. Do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I had this thought of, would you rather have everything out there and know the truth and know how messy it is, or have something be so polished and it look okay and you don't deal with like society's judgments? Like, it's very like, would you rather? And I'm like, honesty is like my top core value. So I would always rather be out there, even if it's messy. So I don't know. I think that's why I had a little more grace for her, but I'm with you on the acting. Just the self-sabotage and this chase for fame, man. Right after I had watched the Jared story with Subway and
Yes.
horrifying, and then the Nickelodeon story, and like
Yes.
all these things were like this lure of fame. And I just watched a documentary, Dance with the Devil, where these
Yes,
TikTok
I saw that too.
what is the universe telling us if we're watching all this, number one? But like this power of chasing fame and success in like these bright spotlights, I'm like, God dang, to the cost of what? Like, at what point are you questioning these cult leaders, these harassers, these abusers? Like, good God.
Also, it makes me wonder on those, because all of those have someone in power who abused power,
Yeah.
and people desperate for some kind of fame outcome, right?
Yes.
They were beholden to the person in power in some way.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, those people in power, were they always like that, or did the power turn them into monsters, or was the monster underneath the surface? But it wasn't until they got an ability to exert that control that they did. It's like nurture versus nature, I guess, is my question. Yeah. Because I look at these people and I think, did you seek that out because you were looking for a channel for your evilness? Or did the evilness kind of come out in you because the power got so intoxicating? And I don't know.
I thought about that exactly. And I kind of think most people, I mean, we've got a lot of mental and physical health issues here. And if you gave them free reign to money and power, I think most of the time it would probably not go well, unfortunately. But then on the flip side, I'm like, well, God, why does God, universe, Madonna grant all this power and money and opportunity to those that are so awful or can be potentially so ill-willed? And then I'm like, well, maybe that is within all of us. Like, I don't know. I went on this whole deep thought of, and then I was like, do I even want to be near that? Like, how far do I want this podcast to go if like this is what it is? Like, I'm a secure individual and I'm aware of what's going on, but I don't know. Things can shapeshift fast.
Well, I heard somebody say once that power and money brings out what's already inside of you. So if you are deep down a generous person, then you will be more generous when you have money and power. And if you are not, if you are a controlling, scarcity driven person, that's what will come out of you if you have power. And maybe that just means there are more of us that are maybe on the spectrum of not as good people.
I don't know. I hope that's true, because I have faith I'll do the right thing when that happens. But I don't know. Oh, the thing is, it wasn't just like abuse of power, like I'm gonna vote for what I want, or do this, or be a mean boss. It's like really dark, awful stuff. Like, I don't even know how you think of it. Like,
well, the Nickelodeon one was particularly bad. That one kiddo.
Horrifying. And like, what a perfect series of events, because you think like, where are the parents? What happened? And it was like a perfect series of events for like the worst thing to go down. And Jared, do you know how hard it is to be an international multi-million-dollar brand ambassador? Like, like the odds of that are unreal. And they skyrocketed this horrible human to complete infamy. Like, wild.
Also, here's the other thing that blows me away. Maybe this is a little bit superficial, but I'm shocked at these people's willingness to pursue their evil pursuits at the risk of what they've accomplished in life. So sometimes I'm amazed that someone like that doesn't go, if I put myself out there and if I say these things and do these things, I'm putting at risk my career that I've built. And I know that sounds very selfish, but I'm sometimes blown away at their stupidity and willingness to risk everything they have because of this fetish, this dark desire that they have that perhaps they could have found a healthier channel for.
Yeah. Well, I think easy come, easy go. I mean, like, a fool and his gold are soon parted. My dad used to always say that, because also inexperienced leadership, like any true great leader in my mind, in leadership and leading humans, having money, whatever, like, because usually when you have the money, you have the power. If you've never lost it all and you're not an experienced leader, I think that's why you see these young athletes with millions of dollars end up broke really fast. Like, anytime that happens, they're just not an experienced, I will say leader, but really just an experienced human. Like, you haven't really experienced highs and lows and like ridden the roller coaster yet. So I think those kinds of people don't think the power is ever going to go away. Like, I don't think they even have to know, like, they like, oh, I'm the best coach in the world, I'm the president, I'm this, like, they have no idea that this can go away in a second. Whereas if you've lived life and you've been to the top and then wiped out on the bottom, like I've certainly experienced that athletically and professionally, you don't know. So until you have that experience, like, you shouldn't really have the riches.
So that's a really great point that I hadn't thought about. That they think they're infallible. And
100%.
so, yeah, so that's why they do the things they do. And in fact, frankly, for a lot of them, they get away with it for such a long time that there are no consequences until it comes crumbling down. And like
Totally.
the Nickelodeon guy's a great example of that. Epstein is a great example of that. Like, and apparently P. Diddy might be a great example of that. So I think you're right about that. But going back to kind of baby reindeer, I am very impressed with the guy who wrote it and started it, and it was his story. Being able to actually honestly tell that story and tell it in a way that doesn't treat Martha like she is the worst person ever. Like, she really, in that, you see all sides of her in a subtle way, but to be able to share your story like that, to your point about honesty, I think is really hard and really impressive. I mean, I wouldn't want the world judging me for everything I'd been through, and he put it on Netflix.
I know. I'm like, I don't, and then I mean, maybe fame was that important to him, or maybe it was about getting the story out. I don't know. Did you ever hear him speak on his why or anything?
So I have never heard him speak. So I don't know if this was like, cathartic for him, or he's still seeking fame, so that's why he did it, or I have no idea. But I only saw the real Martha on, what's his name? Pierce Morgan?
Yeah,
right?
Pierce Morgan.
Yeah.
I'm not a super fan.
No, I'm not. It came across my TikTok feed. I don't watch his
Oh,
show.
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
it's wild. I think the ending though, where it came full circle with his dad, I thought that was kind of like harmonious, and maybe that was the point of the entire thing. I mean, it like blended generations. It broke down stereotypes around not talking with family. Like, to me, those are kind of like the heavy hitter takeaways more than anything. So I don't know. There was a lot though.
It goes back to what you were saying though about you never know what's going on, because you would never guess that from his dad, and his mom knew. It wasn't like they'd been living with this their whole lives and you didn't know it. So how many people out there are living with something, and they've I don't know if it's always an issue of choosing to hide it. I think sometimes people just, it's nobody's business. So they go, well, I don't need to lead with this story. It's not what makes me. Because you had said earlier, right? Because I'm with you, honesty is really important. Do I share my story and risk being judged? Or I guess another way to look at it might be, as long as I'm honest with myself and the people that need to know, does it matter if other people know or not? And if it gets out, and if I'm not hiding it, who cares?
Right. And I think there's a subtle balance there. I have to bring this up, but I watched the Ashley Madison documentary.
So did I. I know what we spend our free time doing.
I was gonna say, apparently we have more time than we think, but it was like 76 million humans on this, cheating website. And there was a great TED talk on infidelity that can change your mind, but go Google it, you can probably find it.
Is that the Esther Pearl?
I think so. Yeah. It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah.
But it's wild to me that, cheating and all that aside, whatever your affliction is or your secret, it's when it came out, people, there's deaths or suicides. My thing is, like, even if you don't get caught, like, what are you living with? Where are so many people living this double life or carrying something so heavy that if people knew the truth, they would rather be dead? Like,
yes.
How many people are walking around? Like, we can do a lot with mental health and meditation and stuff, but like this clarity in our ability to make choice, and our understanding of what this choice is not only going to cost us, but those around us. Yeah. And to have that fortitude and just be like a momentary before you do it, like, is this worth it? And like, do I really want this? I'm no angel, but I don't know. I don't know that it really made me think of like, damn, what choices in life have I done where I wouldn't, it would affect me so bad. And I mean, knock on wood, perhaps I do more searching. I couldn't think of anything. That being said, I'm not like an overshare, especially on social media and everything else, because it does affect other people. I don't know. It took me on this whole spin of what are people doing where like it'd be so bad where you wouldn't want to be here if people found out your truth.
I agree. And I think you see those stories oftentimes in either cheating or financial fraud.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You see them in both. I don't know. I think it's, so I know someone who is carrying around some deep regret and some things this person did that they choose to continue to lie about and pretend didn't happen and weave stories. And here's what I will say about this person is you can see it all over his face. He is exhausted. The stress is eating away at him. And so he may not even be consciously thinking about it on a day-to-day basis. And frankly, he may believe his own lies at this point on the surface, but you can see it, right? You can see, I think it physically eats at you.
Well, I mean, your emotional energy absolutely manifests. This could be a whole podcast into physical stuff. You'll get a heart attack. You'll have, you know, your throat can get sore from not using your voice, like all these things. I just don't know, like, you know, if you're seeking this change or you do this thing that isn't like socially acceptable or family acceptable, it's like, is it worth like the rest of your life to carry that and not really be able to fully live? Like, I don't know, man. I feel like that's almost a worse jail cell than being called out and having to deal with it.
Great.
You know, and so back to the baby reindeer thing, like, I mean, whatever his motives were, it has to be freeing to at least just have it out there. And hopefully it facilitated conversations in other people's homes of like, man, this happened. It's not as bad as this, or it was as bad as this. Let's talk about it.
Well, and if he can honestly write and share that whole story, including the part with that manager guy who wasn't really like, I mean, it just, that takes a lot of, I don't know, depth of comfort. I don't know if it's comfort in yourself or willingness to put it out there, but I agree. I mean, I hope he's sleeping better at night with himself, because I think that's hard. I don't know. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to really put it out there in a really authentic way. I think it's very easy to share your story and do it superficially, but I think to do it in that real of a way, because what amazed me in it too is he admits to going back, even though he knows it's bad, right? He knows it. And yet he goes back. And I think for a lot of people who are on the victim side of the equation, I don't like to call people victims because that implies you never have any control, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I think those people do end up going back to situations that are bad for them, even though they know better. And there's a lot of psychology behind all of that, but to admit that, I think would take a lot of courage.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, I mean, there's so many commonalities in all of those stories of it's a certain kind of person with vulnerabilities, all like the dance story, they targeted people that were seeking fame in this, but usually didn't have a family base. They were taking immigrants that needed something. So they just whooshed them into this situation. And then in every one of them, a lot of them did go back because they didn't know psychologically how to get out of it or to live, or they had no money. I mean, there's so many like commonalities in it. So it just boils back down to like, you never really know what people are going through. And like, we only live our experience. You can truly only relate to what you've been through, and everything else you can just kind of show up and be supportive. But that's kind of the extent of it. I mean, you just got to have grace for people, because it's not like we really, really don't know.
Yeah. And you know what? That is a great lesson, and something that I'm not always good at because I'm such a high driver like you, right? I'm a very high driver. So if you don't perform and you don't show up and you don't do what you say you're going to do, I think we have to show up in life. And I don't think we can use our life circumstances as a excuse to not do what we should be doing either. I don't like to give myself or other people around me permission to be a victim either, because that's not a place, it's not a good place to be from either, right? It's very disempowering. But I have to sometimes remind myself, like, hey, also life happens and people have stuff and I have stuff, and like, let it go.
Well, yeah, it gets to like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, bottom line is you have to get shit done. And like, that is what it is. You have to have your expectation, and everyone's got their own journey. So I have space and grace. I also have deadlines. So it's like this, you know, constant balance of figuring it out. But it is eye-opening of like, man, I feel very privileged, to be honest, like to not have been exposed or to have been raised in a space where I had my feet under, you know, a feet on the ground, and I wasn't subjected to some of these opportunities or chasing stuff so bad. And like you, like, I feel like if I wanted to be famous as a kid or something, I feel like I would have made it happen. And I'm so thankful. Maybe that wasn't within. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm thankful I was like, you know, I don't know. I was in my own head as a kid and doing my own thing and not really paying attention to society or rules or popularity contests, or I never cared, actually. So I think that was actually a beautiful thing looking back.
Absolutely.
It was a little lonely growing up sometimes, because, you know, when you don't try to fit in high school, especially in the US anyway, it can be challenging, but now I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's another takeaway I think is like, you really have to just be like, trust that process and appreciate the journey. If you can look back and see what some of like our young humans have gone through, and the adults, like, you can just be like, okay, maybe I didn't get that job for a reason. Maybe I didn't date that person for a reason. I actually had a friend, we won't go on this tangent, but we were working at the mall. I worked at Finish Line. She worked at the Buckle. And this was when R. Kelly was in town. And I kid you not, he came into the Buckle, serenaded one of the girls she worked with, and invited them to the after party of his show. And I was like, God, I wish he would have come into Finish Line. That's so cool. So it's like stuff like that. And none of them.
Now you're like, oh, thank God he didn't come into Finish Line. I want nothing to do with that guy.
Right. So it's like, I know, but as a 0-year-old, especially in the 90s, I was like, oh my God, like that would have been amazing. Like, it's funny. Just, I don't know. It's funny how some things, when they're not working out, they're working out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So wait, I had a thought and then I lost it. So there's something I've been like dying to ask you about.
Yes.
So I'm going to switch gears from Baby Reindeer for a second because I've been waiting to have this conversation with you for like 3 weeks.
Let's go.
Okay. So you ready?
Ready.
So it's all about psychology. So I read this, let me give some context. I'm not done, this book called The Winning Effect. And one night I went down, have you read it?
No, I have not. Okay. I don't think so.
It's actually older, but it's interesting. Yeah. So one night I went down this rabbit hole of, I'd had a day where things didn't work out. I didn't get the engagement. I was late for an interview. The whole day just seemed to be this spiral down, and every turn I just went a little bit further down. Now, first world problems, nothing, that's going to make or break me. But I was thinking to myself at the end of the day, I need to flip the switch and I need to get back into my winner mindset. Like I was getting into a loser mindset. Mm-hmm. And I need to flip it. So I went down this rabbit hole on YouTube on shift in momentum, because I started to think about, especially in sports, and I'll just use football as my analogy, but in basketball too, right? You see it all the time, where the momentum's shifting one way and then one thing happens and the entire momentum shifts to the other team. Or you'll have a quarterback who throws the worst throw ever and ends up in an interception with a pick six. But then the next play, they come back and throw, like they thread the needle and it's this amazing pass. But I started to think about, well, how do you shift that momentum in those moments? So like when you have a moment that's not going well, how do you shift? So this book started talking about it, but not so much in those sudden shifts. But I wanted to ask your opinion on that because you're an athlete. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on how do you do that in life? Because I think so often our situation becomes a series of decisions and choices and experiences. Yeah. And we have the opportunity at any point to turn it around. But I think it's a skill and something you have to be really intentional about. All right. That's what I've been like dying to talk to you about, Kristen.
Yeah. I love this question. I think on a team or like athletic or professionally, leadership, like one word answer, it comes down to leadership. And your experienced individuals that can see the goal and the end game, even when it's shitty. That can be a solid parent, a solid coach, a solid business owner. It's like, you got to have your leaders, to me, are like your most important investment. Find your right humans. Like they are the ones that are going to be in it. Our Navy SEALs are, the high end, like super specialized team. I think it was SEAL Team 6 that got Obama. Like you need the individuals that get it and believe and operate on a different level. Because when shit hits the fan, because it will, they're steady and they're in it and they get it. And this is why I love athletics, especially CrossFit, or even, I played D1 lacrosse or anything that's important to you. It's like, you cannot predict what's going to happen next. CrossFit, you can a little bit, but bottom line, if you drop the barbell, the judge no reps you, a teacher flunks you, whatever happens, you cannot freak out. Like you learn composure and awareness and all of these things that when stuff is going on around you, it's just that it's external. You have internal, and you have the ability to control your actions, your thoughts, and everything else. And to me, that I think there are great leaders. I've always had this argument that I don't think great leaders are made. I think they're born, and like that's a whole thing. But I think you can do training and you can Google great leadership and you can be a pretty good leader. But like true, like high-end leaders, I think it's something within, and then they have to further build the skill around it. I don't think it is everybody. I do not think you can train to be one of those leaders. And that I could probably be argued to death with other people, but that's just my 411 there. So I think great leaders, you're out there, you're leading things, like sharpen your skills, but like super, super high-end situations that are life or death or whatever, you got to have the right person and they got to shift it. In like an NFL game or something like that, I think it's the person, it's the huddle, it's the CEO that's saying like, I see this, here's what we're going to do. I got you. If this is personal, so shifting now to person, like as an individual athlete, again, I think this is why you can see some of our super successful athletes in high end moments. They've got it within them and they've got the experience to pull it together and then execute or shift the whole energy, which is a whole other skill. But I think leading by example kind of is that. So as individuals, I think you need to expose yourself to hard situations. So when the bigger situations arise, you maintain composure and you know you have the ability to shift whatever is going on in that moment and foresee the outcome that you want to happen. So
okay, so no, this is so good. So I have two questions for you. Well, I have an aha and then a question. What you said just really shook up how I thought about it.
Okay.
Which is, I was thinking of it as internally, I'm spiraling down or I'm spiraling up. And what I'm hearing you say is, it's really not about that. All that shit's external. You're doing what you need to do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but your internal is not the chaos that's external.
If you're experienced, correct.
Yeah, right. If you are the centered, calm person, trained person you need to be.
Yeah.
So I think if let me extrapolate for a minute and tell me if this is right. If we are allowing those external circumstances to dictate the direction, then that's exactly what we're doing. We're allowing the external to decide what happens next versus letting the internal decide what's happening next. So if I'm in a meeting and I'm trying to sell somebody something and it's not going well, like I'm headed downward, instead of just letting that control what happens, I'm internally deciding to drive the conversation in the direction I want it to go because I know the outcome. Or if I'm in sport, right? If I do a lift in CrossFit, if I do a clean and jerk and I don't lift it, right? I drop the barbell. That next lift, I'm back to focusing on the fundamentals and my form and not thinking about the lift before because that doesn't really determine what I'm doing right now. Is that right? Am I getting that right?
100%. And you got it. Just like we're talking about Ashley Madison, you could see the negative energy all over the guy carrying the secret. Yeah. Same thing. If you're sitting in this doomsday, we're about to lose the game, I'm not going to close the sale. I mean, it's tangible. And you don't see it until you've watched, like, again, back to sports, like game tape, or you get feedback from someone. Like, it's so hard to view our own selves, but how you feel is everything. But the bottom line is, to make it simple, you don't control these external things. What you can control is your reaction. So in like, SEALs and all this, like, you stay steady, you do box breathing, you control your body and your mind. And to me, it's even across, like, I think really good at suffering because I can numb out, because I know when pressure's on me, especially being a part, a team of 5 other people, you're a team of 6. My biggest fear is I'm not going to be the one that lets us down. Like, I'm not going to be this. I have to be calm and figure it the fuck out. And like, that's it. Like, it's a very, what can I do with what I have right now? And stay like relaxed. And even if you're not relaxed, like, you expose that, because as an athlete, if I saw someone freaking out on defense or they're throwing their hands, they miss the lift, I'm like, me on the offense, I'm like, yes. I'm like, I know they've lost it. I know they're out of their mindset. Like, I'm going to fucking execute here because they're doing this whole drama thing and I'm right here. And like, I might not have a lot, but I know I don't have that. So to me, like, composure and awareness is like the absolute baseline. And then everything else from there is like experience. But yeah, if something's going wrong, I mean, you don't control if someone's really going to buy. You don't control all these things. But if you remain cool and they're looking at you and they're reading your reaction even more than they're aware, you stay calm and like stay in it, and like you make the choice as it comes, because you don't really know what's next. Like, you can't really, even if you're like, I'm gonna maneuver this, or I'm gonna close the this, like, it's just like athletics. I don't really know what's gonna happen next.
So I feel like that's really freeing, Kristen, because I think I sometimes, as we're saying this, I have a control issue is what I'm really realizing, because I think I can control my external environment too. Turns out I cannot. So maybe that's my issue. But I just thank you for that, because I've been dying to ask you about it, because I've been reading this book about like what makes winners winners. Are they born? Is it created in moments? And it's actually a really fascinating book on the psychology. There's all these studies in it, but super interesting. But it just got me really thinking about life, how, and you see people who are winning, they keep winning. So what's that about? Like, why do winners then seem like it's easier to win?
Again, experience. I think in my highest peaks, to an athlete, we came out and played in Denver. I had my best game of my life. And then I came back, tore my ACL, and it was like the worst moment of my life. And I had to get back in it, and I just couldn't catch a rhythm, and I was young, and I had to figure out, how to fail and how to lose and not be the best player on the team, or not even really I was on the team but not playing, and like all this stuff. But I really think it's a matter of reps. You have to know how to lose. Like, you got to be able to like be out there, like see people see you as a loser. Like, you lost this game, you let the team down. Like, you got to feel all that stuff, because I think all that drives you to that winning state. And if you can't get over that, you're probably not meant to compete. And like, it's that simple. That's where I kind of think it's either within you or not, because you got to get past a few things to even get to the space where you can train to get to the next level. So, it's a bunch of reps around failure. And then when you can get to that success and you can believe it and you can get in a flow, and, those missed shots, those things, coach yelling at you, you being taken off the team, they don't throw you off like it did back in the day, because you know how to get back on. You've already been there. You've already lost. You've already felt like shit. Now you're like, okay, no, I got this. But like, I think it's that consistent internal belief that you are great. And then you got to show up and prove it. And you got to get those around you to believe. And then once that starts happening and it doesn't shake your confidence. I mean, Caitlin Clark, if you watch the WNBA, she misses a shitload of shots. But she's taken them. So, her percentages are still pretty freaking amazing, but she's taken a lot of shots. So, she knows in it, you can see like those last seconds, she's confident enough to like, yeah, I've missed 1,000, but I've also made, 2,000. And in the heat of it, I've made game winning shots. I've done this. I've been here. So like that success just compiles, and then your confidence compiles, and the people around you, that compiles. So I think it's hard to get in that flow, but like that in between space where you're pretty good, you come over this shit, but now you want to get to greatness. You just have to stay in it. And I think that does come down to self-belief.
I think you just nailed it for me, Kristen, and probably for a lot of people who are watching today and will listen later about, and I'm just going to go back to the throwing an interception and throwing a touchdown pass, because that's just an easy example, but it's not, they don't get ass shooken up. Like, I'm watching and I'm like, oh no, the momentum has shifted. But that quarterback or that team or that person is actually steady and focused. And that's why they made the next shot. And what I see is a momentum shift. What they see is they're doing their job.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of reps and situation plays, and and years of having the high school coach say you suck, the college coach say you suck. Tom Brady, the biggest motivator, he was like a whatever 200th draft pick, and they're like, we picked him up, whatever, and he walked into the owner's office and he's like, "This is the best decision you've ever made." I'm like, who the fuck says that as a rookie? But like, again, if it's in here and you can believe it, I seriously think that's the North Star, and that I don't know that you can build. I seriously think it's there, it's not, and then you can grow it, but it's one or the other. And you can have other great leaders that don't have that, but not on that level.
I will say that when I listen to some of the greats speak, and Deion Sanders is another example of this. He had said when he was 7, he knew, he was like, I'm going to take care of my family. Like, my mom's never going to have to work again, and I know that sports is my way to do that. And there's just a clarity in them that most of us don't have.
Yeah. Oh, well, and even to kind of counter my own point, I do think obviously self-belief is huge, but when you're young and you start that and you believe it so hard that you don't let the noise come in and all the conditioning. Cause I think my weakest moments were when I got older, I lost like my young self belief, and then I let conditioning or things come in, and then I got back to it. And I think I've told you, I channel like my 18-year-old self all the time because I had such clarity. But I think as we get older, it's hard to not fall, subject to what we're supposed to do, or you're not doing it like everyone else, or you need to be like this. Like, I think then that comes off. So when you're that young, when you're 7, whatever, and you're that in it, and then you have opportunity at 18, 19 before a lot of this other shit, I think that helps, because you miss a lot of that conditioning.
Well, really what he has is what Seth Godin talks about with his 10,000 hours, right? He started earlier than a lot of people. I think for some people, I think you're right that some people just inherently have it in them. I do think some people have it in them but lost it, or it's cloudy for life circumstance, some reason or another, some life circumstance. And some people get it back and some don't.
I think there's a lot of free will and choice, and being great is work. It's not like you just wake up great. Like Beyonce, I woke up like this. Like, you want to be the best, you're sacrificing almost everything in your life to be this one thing. And that's the reality of like anyone that's been close to the top of anything, and I'm not a Tom Brady. I'm not this. I've been to the games. I've been in, high-end situations. And there's still people miles ahead of where I've been. If you want to be there, you need to be ready to sacrifice just about everything. And for those of us that want that and it is worth it, by all means, like that's it. A lot of people it's not. And I respect that too. Like I think it's a lot of free will and choice of really choosing like how bad do you want this?
You know what? I think sometimes it's in the verbiage. So I really want it. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm headed there, but I'm not there. I'm by no means there yet. I don't know if they'll ever be Beyonce, but I mean the greatness in terms of what I want. But I hear in colleagues a lot right now and friends, like, oh, because I'll work really late at night all the time. Now I stop and I make my kids dinner and we have these great conversations, but then I have, then I go back once they retreat to their room to do whatever they do, like I go back to work. So, and I get up early, right, to get my workout in so that I can have the day to work. Like I'm always working and I'll hear people say things to me like, oh my God, Tamara, like that's exhausting. They don't pay me enough to work at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. I'm trying to find more balance. I'm trying to, and good, whatever you want to do you. But you can hear I don't know if it's the pushback or the resentment or the like judgment in their voice about like, why would you give up your life to pursue your dreams? And in my head, I'm thinking, why would you give up your dreams to do anything else, frankly?
100%.
But yeah, and again, not judging them, like it is what it is for them and it is what it is for me, but you can hear it in people when, I don't know if you get this too, but I get it all the time because I'm always thinking about work. I'm always like, there's always something for me with work, but I love it. I love my work. So I don't know any different, but I also don't know that I want to know any different. And I sacrifice going out sometimes with friends, doing stuff because I need to do other things for me.
Yeah, I think it's all perspective. Like I think I'm working all the time, but I don't even consider it work. This is the shit I want to do. Like I'm not missing. I mean, I obviously get my documentary time in and I get things that I want to do. So I don't even I don't know. I think a lot of people look at my life and be like, oh my God, I don't know how or why she does that. And I would look at their life and be like, I don't know how or why you do that.
Yeah.
So and we need both in this world. So there's no better or worse. It's like, what is aligned for you? That's why, like, I mean, leadership in these great moments and like these humans are revered. But you don't see all the work that goes in, all the sacrifices, the missed kids' birthdays, blah, blah, blah. Like everything's a trade-off. So like the person that has made time for all their family's life, maybe they have less money or they didn't do fully the dream, but they've, experienced all of their family's experiences. That might be the gold in most people's eyes. So it kind of goes back to our initial conversation of it's perspective, like what's worth what to you. And like, we don't really know what's going on or what people want. And you kind of just got to go with what you really authentically want. Don't let too much of the noise in, and then fiercely pursue that. And if that's free time with your family and not about money, great. If that's about taking over the world or having the best podcast or whatever, great. But I don't think those super high end revered spaces, which should not be over glorified either, are for everybody, including entrepreneurship, including high end competitive athlete. Like it's not for everyone.
So it's interesting. Do you know the podcast Bobby? Whatever her name is, she's gotten she rose to the top really fast, and she interviews really well-known people like Drake or The Rock, or I don't know if she interviewed The Rock, but people like that. But she's not my jam. She's snarky and.
Oh no, I do know. Was it like they did like a joke around Drake, like he followed her and then unfollowed her, and it was like a weird.
Yeah. So she's not my jam in terms of how she interviews and her whole personality. However, I'm gonna have her back on this one thing. I was on TikTok and I was watching and I just kept she got so much flack because when she started the podcast or early on to the podcast, she missed her 1-year-old's birthday party or birthday to go interview. I think it was Drake actually. Okay. But in my head, I was thinking, hell yeah, I would miss a birthday party to do something that might completely change the trajectory of my career. Like, sorry, but I would totally do that. And I think like as a woman and a mom, you get more flack than I don't think a man would ever. My dad missed so many of our birthdays because he was traveling for work, but in his mind, right, he's doing it for his kids. He's making a life. So I feel like I could be wrong. I could be totally projecting onto her. She might have whole different reasons. But if that were me, I'd be thinking, yes, because now I can financially take care of my kid as he or she gets older, and I can provide the life I want to provide. So I just want to say to all those people out there, shame on you guys for shaming her for that. Like, it was a birthday. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, her paycheck might have paid for that birthday. So like everyone go ahead and breathe.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, you don't really know what's going on. It's like right back to our initial point is like, I mean, so much of it, I mean, that Bay Reindeer literally made me think like, I really try and not judge, which we all judge to make things make sense in our own minds. but to just pull back and be like, okay, and just not get attached to much, because you never know the whole story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely, the women absolutely get judged differently than the men missing things for 100%.
So always. I get judged a lot from the moms that my kids, one's in college now, but in high school, but in elementary and in middle school in particular, because I worked a lot. So I was at the things that mattered to them and mattered to me. And I missed the things that in my mind was not as significant. And I got a lot of flack for that from my neighbors, but I never cared, because I was like, you do you.
I mean,
whatever.
If they have time to care, they need to do more things. Like, I think if you're worried about other people, I think that's a worse jail than being busy and missing other things. Like, if you're sitting there wasting your life hours worried about what other people are doing, that's an imprisonment within itself.
Well, that just goes to show that you have a hole in you somewhere that needs to be filled.
Yeah, exactly.
So I will tell you on a side note real quick, I'm involved with this thing, and there's a person on this team that has recently flourished, went from kind of not really being involved, absentee person, to just taking the reins and being amazing. And somebody else gave me credit for that person stepping up. And they said, Tamara, I just got to tell you, I don't know what it is about your leadership that has really ignited this person, but kudos. And I had to really push back and say, listen, I got to tell you something. It actually wasn't me. It was this person. This person went through some life changes, and they came to a place that was better for them. And it happened to coincide with when I stepped into leadership. But I thought it was so interesting that they gave me, I'm being a little bit around because I don't want to like put the person out in the public. This was not a story I think they want, like, out there in the world necessarily. But I thought it was fascinating that this other person gave me credit for this person. And I knew the real story. So I knew that this person did what they needed to do to get their life moving forward. And I happened to be the beneficiary of that because I happened to lead the team at the same time. But, and we could say, well, Tamara, you gave them the space, but that's fine. Totally. But really, that person did it. But I just thought it was fascinating because it goes to your whole thing earlier about external, right? Like, and people are thinking that I'm talking, hopefully this is making sense, Kristen, because I feel like I'm talking in circles, but like people were giving me credit for this person stepping up their game. And I thought that was fascinating because it was all them. It wasn't me.
Well, I think that's great that you did the right thing, but I'm sure you had a space in that process, or even just walking and leading by example in your own life as a strong woman of independence and entrepreneurship, like all the things. I don't doubt that was. So I do think you should take credit. I think sharing it, but this absolutely is a perfect sports example of like the team knows what's going on. It doesn't matter what sports writers are saying or PR people, or they're pinning this quarterback against this guy, or like they know what's within and nothing else matters, and it's right here, and that's it. And same thing with internal dialogue. If you're competing, all this stuff is going on. People are saying things, and some drunk guy at the end of the bar has an opinion on how the quarterback should be, and like, and meanwhile, like the quarterback that has millions of years of experience, like all this, they know what's going on. Like the truth. So I think it's good you said it, but it also goes back to like individual security. Like regardless of what the world's thinking or how this looks, I know the truth. I mean, there's so many things we do that are extraordinary. They get 0 gold stars. And like the really hard stuff. And then this other shit, like I got promoted and I put it on LinkedIn, you get 10,000 likes. Like, okay. But like, you got to know the real stuff, like really give your own gold stars when it matters.
So I'm all about that. And I also, I came to a place where I don't need the accolades from anybody else. I really don't. And so, but it's funny. It's hard for other people because I don't care if people see it or don't see it. I just want to go do it and make it happen for me. But there's a lot, but it was really freeing. I wasn't always like that. So it was really freeing when I got to that place because it pushed me to keep going forward. I wasn't waiting for validation. I wasn't doing things for validation. And it just, for anyone listening, just you are the one that matters. Nobody else matters. So just like give yourself, to your point, Kristen, give yourself the gold stars, give yourself the accolades. I bought myself a little new pickleball tennis skirt today as a little reward accomplished. So
there you go.
By the way, do you see my shirt? It says, I don't know if you can see it, NW Aces, straight out the kitchen.
Hey, I love it. I love it.
I'm about to become a pickleball competitor.
I love this. I still am yet to play, but I think that's all. I mean, that is exactly what it is. And for any leader that knows how to let go, I genuinely think that's when greatness begins. Like 100%. You've got to fearlessly and fiercely be yourself and like just chase this thing no, and like I'll put blinders on and like just be in it, because everything else is an absolute distraction. I've really tried to focus this on this lately, just getting off TV, getting off phone, getting off whatever, and like just staying completely in it as much as I can.
You know, so I think I told you last time we talked that I started this whole digital detox, and it's been wonderful. And then recently, it was about a week ago now, I dropped my phone. So I can't open it. I can receive it. If you call me, I can answer it, but I can't get into my phone otherwise. So I know, but I get my texts on my whatever. I make it work. I got my iPad, it's fine. But what's been funny about it is I haven't had the ability to scroll. So I can't just, because to get on your iPad, to open up Instagram, it's not the same, right? It's just like while you're on your phone. And it's been really great because my screen time's down like 75%.
Oh my gosh.
I can't get on.
Are you not going to fix it?
I am fixing it. It's just, I have coverage through AT&T, which I'm sorry, AT&T, but
say the truth.
They're like, oh, well, it's an inside screen issue. It's got that black dot. So there's some liquid issue. How I dropped it. So instead of the screen just being cracked, and they're like, well, that's not covered. That's going to cost. And I'm like, so go with Apple Care. If you have an iPhone, Apple's the best. AT&T sucks from that perspective. So anyway, so I'm getting it fixed, but out of principle, I'm not letting go how they're treating me, because bad customer service, especially when you've been a customer for 15 years. Like, give me a break, like this is ridiculous. So anyway, I'm in a battle with AT&T.
I just think it's funny as a marketing professional, branding, like the money you spend to acquire a customer versus take care of the ones you have blows my mind. Like blows my mind.
And what does it cost you to fix my iPhone 15? Really, a couple $100, maybe? Give me a break. You can't.
Versus giving away a brand new phone to get a new customer. Like I don't understand. You already got them in the door.
I have 3 lines on you, AT&T, between me and my 2 sons. 3 lines, 3 phones. Come on.
That's ridiculous.
Oh no, I'm so frustrated. Hey, can we, before we run out of time, so actually I'm all over the place today, as you can tell. I've had like 4 cups of coffee. So I know. So I love that we talked about the momentum stuff though, but I just want to say thank you, because it really shifted how I think about it to the internal. And that's a whole different place to be in this world from than thinking about I have to shift the momentum, because that's also really hard to do. It's a harder thing, right? It's physics. It's harder. So I like that, because it makes me, I have experience and I have ability. So if I just stick to that, the other stuff will work its way through, I think.
You don't control it. This is why I love sports so much, because you show up and you play. You come with what you have in that moment, and that's it. I mean, CrossFit, it does annoy me. Like, get your new shoes and you restart the clock and all this shit. No, like in real sports, like you show up, you have what you have. You're not changing your outfit or your shoes or any BS. Like, it's right there, and like that's it. And then you see what happens, and that's what makes it so fun. And like when you can just let your mind be and you can get in flow and just play, that's when like the greatness happens. And that is, I mean, it's so cliche, but like that is truly life. And I love that you're even asking these questions, because like while I know it's within, and this is like one of my things, I get separated from it. So like you have to get self. Yeah. So, it's, I don't know. So I'm glad you brought it up, because it's good for me to even hear it back and question it.
Well, and I just, when I look back at things, there are things that change the trajectory. I've had opportunities that have helped accelerate growth or success, or put me in one place or another place, or even behind or ahead. But at the end of the day, it's all those little actions that just over time add up. And like, so just to take it to CrossFit for a second, we did DT the other day, the Carowad. And so for those who don't, it's 5 rounds of 12 deadlifts, 9 hang cleans, and then 6 push jerks, which my push jerks are always just me, just with my muscles. I always think it's the jerk part of it, but I was in a new class with new people who were super nice, and they were cool. And in my head, I wanted to beat them, because that's how like I, compete with myself. And so I put a little more weight on the bar than everybody else. That was step number 1. But here's the thing that I want to share is, at first I was going really fast, and because I can go through power cleans and hang clean really fast. So, and you can use momentum on your side. So I was doing that, and then, but I was starting to get really winded. I was starting to slow down because I was going too quickly. And so I was like, no, Tamara, just focus on the form, focus on your form, focus on your lift, focus on like, you know, the high elbows, focus on the, and when I started doing the focusing on the form and the technique, I started going faster without the effort. Where before I was expending too much effort, but I was burning myself out. So it was an interesting lesson in what you're saying of like, control what you can control. Okay, I can control and I can do really well in my form and the speed will follow, versus trying to focus on the speed and my form was all over the place. It was a shit show.
Absolutely. Smooth is fast and composure is everything. Like just no matter what, keep your composure and keep yourself in a space to make a decision.
So my fiance, this is the weirdest word to me. Every time I say it, I stumble.
You can just say boo thing if that's easier.
My boo thing. He's my cowboy. He's out feeding cows as we speak, actually.
I love it.
My cowboy. He got shot once. They were duck hunting, and the guy, there was a drunk guy with him who shouldn't have been there. It was a friend of a friend, and it's great to hear him. We should have him on to tell the story at some point, because the point of the story is, so I guess in duck, you're like around a pond, but you're shooting like you're not at each other, right? You're in places where you're not going to shoot at each other. And this guy went to the bathroom, came back and was like shot directly at Jeff and hit him. And he had all these splinters all over. So he didn't, fortunately it pierced his skin, but he had like a million layers on because it was cold, thank God. But what he shared about that story is he almost killed the guy, because he put, like, when that guy, he went running, he was so angry, he went running towards the guy, like brought up his gun that he had, pointed at him, and tells a story about it. He was like this far, right, one little hair trigger away from making a decision that would have ruined him for the rest of his life. And about like that impulse control and that having that ability to slow yourself down and make a smart decision in a moment versus speeding up through a decision, and how like it's that half a second between decisions, between actions, that actually are where the real thinking happens. So I love it when he's way better at telling the story than I am, but it's like a little millisecond that made him think, if I do this, right, I go to jail, my kids don't have a dad. Like, he had to really start, because he was so angry. The guy shot him, and the guy was drunk. He shouldn't have been there.
Wow, that's
crazy. But it's that second, right?
Yeah, that's amazing that happened. I think sometimes the unfortunate thing is like the opportunity to where you have to think happens before you have the experience to know how to have that thinking pause. I think that's when things get a little bit hairy. And yet, I don't know his experience, but like he had the ability to have that pause, you know, wherever he was at. And that's, especially in a heated reaction kind of situation, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's once the emotions take over, it's hard to, but it goes back to what you were saying. The reason I share that is it goes back to what you were saying about, like, you know, composure, slow, and sometimes that kind of time warping has to happen in our brain because we only have 1 second, but we need that 1 second to think it through and not react in a way or behave in a way that's actually going to hurt us later. To your point about the Ashley Madison, like, just to bring it all full circle, like, I think we're really bad as humans. We're really bad at making decisions based on our future self. We make them based on our current self, and our current self loves the, you know, reward of a night in a hotel room. Our future self hates how we feel. And sometimes our future self is just the next morning. It's not even 10 years into the future.
Or 10 minutes after. Like, I mean, it's like, what is this choice? And again, this is why I love like sports goals, whatever. Like, when you have that goal always there, I think as a kid, like, I was always thinking, like, I didn't really drink in high school because, like, I had to play, you know, this, and I was already behind. Like, I always had this goal front and center as the, like, the gatekeeper and the thing that held me, like, accountable. So, like, when you have that there, I think that helps with the perspective in your choices.
I think you're right. Okay, let's wrap it up with WNBA and women's sports. And, like, I feel like it's blowing through the roof.
I am so excited about it. I'm about to buy the league pass. I was just tuning in just because I want to support women's sports. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but now that I've started watching, I am like all in. I'm going to watch parties. I've only been to one, but I love the way it's going. I want to get a WNBA team, excuse me, in Denver. So, like, I don't know, but just the energy around it is unbelievable, and I'm so excited about it.
Do you think that was, I know there's a lot of talk of Caitlin Clark, and I don't know. Also, my lingo might be off, so bear with me, anybody. But She's amazing to watch, and she has definitely brought in viewers that didn't exist before. Whatever's happening in the sport, maybe she's. Sometimes I feel like it's a combination of moment and person that collide, and everything's right for that change to happen.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Like, is it her? Is it the what's like? What is Why is this happening now?
I mean, I would tell them, just go watch her play. She's extraordinary, of course.
Yeah.
But the media, of course, it's women, so they're pinning women against women. There's race conversation there, so they're pinning, races against each other. And I mean, there's tons of fights going on, but they want to keep talking about this fight, not fights, but like heated moments between Caitlyn and Angel and all this. And like, I wish, people just start watching, and like, it's so much of the media trying to facilitate this facade around things, and then they're clipping, players commentary. Just watch them play. They're extraordinary. Caitlin Clark is unbelievable. And so are so many of the players that have been there all along. So it's just about, I think, as viewers, go watch it and go form your own opinion around things. Don't get too hyped into what the media's, doing. But on the flip side, as a branding marketing professional, the press, while I agree or disagree, it's facilitating all this viewership. It's facilitating all these major sponsorships. So it's not this perfect process. And it's elevating women's sports. So that's what I care about. So I can appreciate it on that level. If you want to know the details, go watch it and get your own opinion.
And I will say this, the kind of the rivalries and the fights, oftentimes, so I know this to be true in boxing, you see these big rivalries in the ring, and behind the scenes, they were friends. Like, it was part of the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know in this case if it is or isn't part of the game, because I haven't watched enough. What I'm excited about is, there's always been this debate about pay in women's sports versus men's sports. And part of the things that's always thrown me off a little bit in that conversation is women's sports hadn't brought in the money or the viewership. So it's a really hard, it's not a straight line conversation, I think.
Right.
But now that the viewerships are changing, I think it opens up that conversation in a much more real way where we can make change happen too.
Yeah.
I think the viewership is phenomenal, and it's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating to watch.
The level of play is awesome, and all the details around it, like the halftime shows, the mascots, everything's different than other professional sports. And more than anything, like I would say about the WNBA, these are like really varsity humans. Like, there's really good women doing good things. Angel Reese just invested in a women's soccer team. So like, these are really, I mean, their families there, their kids are there. This is not like regular professional sports where there's like babies' mamas just like in a whole section. And, there's arrest warrants on the weekend. I'm just going to call it how it is. Like, it's just different. And it's, whether it's women or not, or whatever it is, like, it's different. And like, 98% of these humans are like humans I'd want to be like. I can't say that about most other professional sports. So, it's just a whole different level, and the sport and everything's amazing. But like, truthfully, in my opinion, it's really good people. And that I'm just so glad that we have more of a light shined on good humans doing good things, period.
So I feel like that's happening for women in a lot of different areas. Because if you look at music too, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Billie Eilish, whether you like their music or not, they are transforming how they do their work.
Absolutely.
Too, and in good ways. So kind of interesting to see.
Yeah. And like, to our initial points, like, you have no idea what it's taken to get there and what the sacrifice. I mean, you think about Whitney Houston, the sacrifice of the lives of all the people before these humans, and then their sacrifice. And I would say that about the WNBA, or like even entrepreneurs. Like, you just never know the full story, and they're in their greatness. They're doing their thing. And I don't know, like, it's amazing. I think we got to celebrate it for what it is, and know on the flip side, like, we don't fully probably know what's going on. Hence, media is creating all these stories and everything else. So,
well, we see 10 minutes of the whole story at the end of the day. And and that's true for anybody's life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't ever know what goes on behind closed doors.
Right. Ever. Just keep giving out those personal gold stars. That's all I know.
I like that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I feel like there was other stuff we were going to cover. I wanted to cover the Tom Brady roast, but we'll cover that.
Oh, well, I just got to say, Nikki Glazer, for women in comedy, if anyone says that women aren't funny, she slayed it. Like, it was no contest.
Nailed it. She was the best out of all of them.
By far. I think by like a mile.
But oh my gosh, she was so good. And what I found funny was, okay, here's what I found funny. So I'm not anti Tom Brady. I think he's the best of the best. And I think he has sacrificed a lot, to your point earlier, to be that. and I think maybe should have retired the first time. But all that aside, I think he's one of the greats in football and in leadership. And, you know, he stands alone in that way. What I found funny was afterwards is all his comments about like, had I known they would have brought my kids into it, I would have never done it. And there was a part of me that thought, did you not think they would go after everything? Like that is what a roast is. Have you seen a past roast? Nothing is off limits. So I don't know why you thought that, or are you just saying that to make it look better than like you knew you were going to end up with your kids and your ex-wife and all that on the table? I don't know.
But he literally made a joke at Kim Kardashian. I can't believe you're here. Your kids are with their fathers. Like he made a joke about her kids. So it's like, I didn't get the post-show response, but again, maybe that was part of it. We never know who has a PR team to make it better. Giselle's team got mad, so like he had to make who the fuck knows?
Right. That's what I was saying. Like, I don't know if he was naive enough to think, or thought he was so standalone in his podium of greatness that nobody could touch, say anything that would be inappropriate, or if that's just what he was supposed to say afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would not be surprised either way. It just didn't make sense when because comedy is, especially that roast, like no holds bar. Like it's gonna go on anything. And he also stepped up when they made fun of the owner, but he didn't step up and he said don't say anything. But he didn't step in when they were saying anything about his kids and his wife during the show.
No.
And he literally got up and stuck up for the owner and he said, quit talking about him. So it's like, well, if it bothered you that bad, why didn't you say it in the moment?
Right. Exactly. But Nikki Glaser nailed it.
Crushed it.
Yeah, she was absolutely.
Before we're going, I got to give a live shout out to you. Congratulations on the fire event. If you're listening, watching, Tamara and her team of the Denver Fire crushed a huge event last Saturday. Huge success. I thought it was awesome. I hope you guys were happy with it. But it was good. It was big. You guys had a lot of setup and a whole thing. Like,
oh my God. Well, I will tell you, I will give credit to two people on our team, Jackie and Vicky, because they did Jackie did really the logistics, like she was all in, and then Vicky really stepped up to get us community support and like go out to all the businesses, and you helped with that as well a lot. Oh, yeah. In fact, I just had Bubba's collagen in my coffee this morning. So, yeah, so I've been sharing that with everybody. There you go. So thank you for that. Yeah, you know what? It was great. I think the best moment was when Ray talked.
Agree.
So, yeah. I mean, I'd love to debrief with you offline on it because I have a lot of thoughts about it, but the more we can impact kids who are coming from a disadvantage to kind of help them get on the playing field of life, I think if we did that, then it's a win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was awesome. So, and just seeing it firsthand, I think is really important in general, because we can get disconnected from where the money and intentions are really going. So that was cool.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because that to me is a big part of why I guess as the president, moving into the presidency role, I really have focused on event-based things because I think that first of all, giving money makes you feel connected. So I'm never embarrassed to ask for the money for the kids. But also second, I think it allows us that people give their time, money, and energy to actually connect with the kids and do stuff that brings them closer to what we actually do and who we do it for. So, and it was good. And I will tell you, the only other thing I'll say is online so my kids were there, my boys, and, they're both teenagers, and it was fascinating to hear them talk about it afterwards, after hearing both of the Fire kids speak. So one of them being the alumni and one of them still being in the heart of the program. And my kids, first of all, what Ray said about redefining discipline and self-love stuck with them totally. And they said, but what was interesting is like the other kiddo who spoke, who we couldn't take video of, they were saying how they could see that he had a rough background in the way he carried himself and that he was working so hard to push through. And they don't have that in their lives, right? For all intents and purposes, they've got it pretty damn good. So, we've all had our shit, but they don't have it like that. So
that's huge.
It was good for them to see that.
Well, and that's why, like, I know everyone's like, raise money and how many people or what do we get, whatever. But like, there's so many things you can't measure that are so impactful, and there's such a ripple effect on that. Like in that experience, getting the right people together to talk about the right message, impactful in the right way. Like, there's so many things you cannot measure that are like deeply, deeply impactful. So that's awesome. I'm glad you got like validation in that in some capacity.
Yeah, good. All right, well, we'll be back next month with a whole nother list of things. We got to keep our notes so we don't forget. Like, we forgot.
I know. We talk about what we need to talk about. I think it's all right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go off.
All right.